Hey everybody, welcome to the Shelf Examination Podcast, where we are examining items found on the shelves of our local libraries. My name is Joe. I'm the Makerspace Administrator for the libraries in Southern Utah.
And my name is Sarah, and I am the Reference and Teen Librarian here at the library in Hurricane, Utah.
And we are still in the midst of our Kaiju review. I believe this is episode 5?
5?
Yes, and in this episode we are examining King Kong versus Godzilla from 1963.
Yes, which we don't have on our shelves. But
we had to go outside of our stacks for this one, but this
County,
was important.
Clark County, Las Vegas, they do have a copy.
Fantastic. And that's a wonderful thing about libraries. We all talk to each other. If you don't have something on the shelf of your local libraries that you want to see, talk to your librarian. They might be able to get it for you.
We have our ways.
We have our ways. Now, this movie.
This movie was, it was something.
I will tell you the truth. I loved it.
I laughed so hard.
This was
I was
the
entertained.
Beginning. It is interesting to me. Okay, from my perspective, I love this movie. This was the Kaiju movie that I've been looking for this whole time. Remember the first Godzilla? I was like,
it's got some serious tone.
Yes, exactly. Too serious, no personality. Yeah. This movie was fun. It was silly.
It was
the
definitely
characters had a personality.
Yeah.
I will not say that it was perfect.
No,
but it's what I was looking for in a kaiju
I
movie.
laughed
It's what
so
I
hard.
expected.
My husband comes out. He's like, "What are you watching?" And I'm like, "Sit down. It's a man in a gorilla suit versus a man in a giant lizard suit. It's great."
And I've never seen this movie all the way through, but this to me,
I hadn't seen it all the way through either. I'll
Yeah.
admit it. I had seen the beginning and the end, and I had no idea how they connected.
And it's interesting to me that in a lot of very real ways, whether King Kong is counted as a kaiju or not, King Kong is still the genesis of the kaiju.
Yes.
Because a lot of the people who made Godzilla were very open about the fact that they were inspired by what they saw on the screen when they saw King Kong.
Not even, working with the miniature models, with the, they're like, how do we make this giant monster? You don't have to make it giant, just make everything else little.
Yeah. The miniature work, everything inspired the makers of Godzilla.
Yeah.
So in a real way, King Kong was the genesis,
even
whether
if you
it
don't
is
count
one.
it.
But it is also interesting to me that for kaijus to really become what I expected a kaiju to be, and this is based on like my memory as a child of watching half of these movies on television, because you'd be flipping through the TV and be like, oh, Godzilla.
Yeah, I did that all the time.
My
brothers and I could actually agree on these shows.
That left an impression on me that has not been fulfilled until we bring King Kong back into the mix.
Because the ones you see are the ridiculous ones. Yeah. They're funny and they're fun. And
there are a lot of them to follow. But this is the first one that really satisfied that
and
itch.
The director said he was doing it. He wasn't doing it as a representation. He wasn't doing it like Godzilla was supposed to be the atom
there's
bomb
no symbol, kaiju as a symbol.
No,
none of that.
It was intended to be a satire, and it was the director said it was a satire on TV, Japan's TV industry. Because in 1962,
I did read that.
The network sponsors did huge publicity stunts. And to the point where a cultural satirist, Soji Oya, said the networks were creating a, quote, nation of 100 million idiots.
I mean, nothing's changed, but...
Yeah, only now it's just spread to international, not just
exactly.
Japanese TV.
But, yeah, and I could definitely see that this movie had a point that it was trying to make, but it was not making that point.
It wasn't beating you over the head with it.
Well,
no.
It wasn't doing it by making the monster be subtly.
It wasn't representing something. The monster was a monster.
The monster was a monster, and the monster was the stunt as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So I got to ask, which version did you watch? Did you watch the U.S. version or the Japanese version?
I watched the Japanese version with subtitles because that was the one I could find easiest.
I watched the U.S. version, so we're gonna have some notes to compare back and forth on this one.
Ones.
But what I think is interesting is that they are the same story beats, but told a little bit differently.
They changed a lot of I can still not say that way. Regionalism. Thank you.
Yes, I got you.
Regional,
but not just
specific
that.
areas. But they also added
Yeah.
bits and pieces so it would be more palatable to
Well,
an American
they
audience.
added an American news broadcaster.
Again.
Yes.
Oh,
and he
no.
was throughout the whole thing in such a way that it made me think of Power Rangers. That I could tell, like, the delineation between here's the American shot footage and here's the original Japanese. It felt in a lot of ways like they were Power Rangering this movie before Power Rangers was even a thing. And once again,
Shoot.
I didn't hate it.
It's fine.
It made it so that I could ingest it easier, and I was okay.
It was
with
like the narrator of Godzilla or Rodan.
Not as bad.
Okay.
Not as bad. It was much more palatable this time. It
Okay.
felt like it was part of the movie. But I do have some questions for you because there are some things. A couple of times throughout the movie, the American narrator says something, and then we cut to the Japanese footage, and the Japanese person says it too, and I'm like going, you guys, come on, you don't need to repeat yourself. But there was one thing that the American side said that the Japanese side didn't say, and this is a big sticking point to me in this movie. The American narrator was talking about the difference between King Kong and Godzilla, and he holds up a marble, and he goes, Godzilla has a brain this size. I mean, that's a shooter marble, but still, buddy, I think it's a little bit bigger.
A little bit
And he
bigger
goes,
than that.
But King Kong, and he holds up a primate skull, has a brain 50 times the size of this skull. And so this is a fight between brain and brawn.
What?
Did they indicate that
No.
at all in
No.
the Japanese version?
No.
Okay.
No, they did not indicate, King Kong can think his way through this where Godzilla's just reacting. No, that was never brought up.
Here's the thing, though. And let's jump ahead to the final fight,
Yeah.
which we'll come back to everything else, but let's jump ahead to the final fight. We see King Kong doing some thinking
Yeah,
in
he
that
works his
fight.
way out, but they never, he works things out. He does.
At first, he calls to Godzilla, and then he hides and lets Godzilla pass him. But every time he tries to do something clever, it failed.
Yeah.
Until... we will talk about the setup for this later, but until King Kong is out for the count, and then
Bolt in
random
the blue.
lightning
Bolt
starts
in the blue.
striking.
You know what I was reminded of? This is terrible. I was reminded of Sailor Moon, where you
Okay.
have where they're fighting. It's the episode of the day, the old Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
They're fighting the bad guy and they're getting their tails kicked and oh no, what do we do?
Tuxedo
And then
Mask
Tuxedo
shows up,
shows up. He says something ridiculous, throws a rose, and suddenly they're all powerful.
Yeah, we had Tuxedo Lightning in this one.
I know.
That struck.
Don't get me wrong. I love Sailor Moon. Nobody, say anything about that.
Yeah. But it is true that
No hate mail,
it's
please.
it's that third act turnaround.
Yeah.
that-
Evilness is bad, Sailor Moon. You must defeat it. That was the first episode I ever saw. I was
Yeah.
like, evilness is bad? Okay.
The American translation could use some work. And then King Kong gets struck by the lightning. He's supercharged.
He's
and all of a
supercharged and
sudden-
he's like the light bulb turns on. I know how to defeat this guy.
But that's the thing. The light bulb didn't turn on. He was now super brawn. It was now brawn versus brawn. Where'd the brain go? You had
like
Chekhov's brain and it misfired.
Yeah, it's like the light bulb turns on. I'll just beat him to a pool.
Oh, I know the solution to this. More fist. Now, knowing that was not in the Japanese version makes me feel a little bit better.
that's they never
But I still
came
feel
up.
like it was a missed opportunity because it was a great setup that they just absolutely did not deliver on.
No, not at all. And it makes me wonder, if the American adapters had watched the whole movie, because it's like every time he tries to outthink him, it fails.
Yeah.
And so he just goes more brawn. Why would you want to emphasize how smart he is?
Again, it's a good setup, and I wish that the final fight had seen him being a little bit more clever. And I think to future King Kong and Godzilla movies in the modern era,
the modern ones,
they definitely show that King Kong is
is
smart.
working his way through puzzles because he's supposed to be young. He's real young. Compared to the King orangutan, blah blah blah.
And in is it King Kong X Godzilla or King Kong versus Godzilla? I don't know. But in one of them, we see King Kong building traps to defeat the monsters, and he tries to talk it out with Godzilla, which
That's in the most
Godzilla's
recent
having
one.
nothing of.
Yeah,
you know?
Godzilla's like, I don't want to hear it. Go away.
Yeah,
That was the versus.
No, that was X.
Was it X?
It was X. Because it was versus then X.
Yes, you're right.
Which I think what are they going to do for the next one? You know, why? We got nothing left, guys.
Yeah, bring in something else. Bring in Rodan.
That would be cool. So back to King Kong versus Godzilla. Okay, so we've talked about how they completely misfired on that one, but let's go back to the beginning of the movie. One thing that I do think is interesting about this movie is King Kong got top billing.
It did. It is King Kong versus Godzilla.
It is King Kong versus Godzilla, and it was King Kong versus Godzilla in Japan as well. It's almost like Japanese audiences were more.
Oh no,
excited
they ate up King Kong. They ate it up.
But
not to say we didn't.
We talk about the differences between the American and the Japanese version. I want to acknowledge that there has been in the past a rumor that when I was a kid, I was told, hey, the Japanese version is different, and in it, Godzilla wins. And it turns out that that's not the case.
No, it's not true.
King Kong wins in both versions of the show.
Quote unquote wins. I think they kind of call it a draw.
No.
They just stopped their rampage.
The creators of the movie have repeatedly had to say, no, King Kong won. But they did such a bad job of conveying it because it literally happened off camera.
Yeah, it happens. They fight underwater, and then you only see King Kong.
What was that? An earthquake? No, that was King Kong. Or that was Godzilla losing off camera.
Yeah.
How? Why?
We don't know.
We don't know.
Oh, they see. Oh, we'll get to that in a minute.
But it was a very unsatisfying.
It was
resolution.
very anticlimactic, and I think they were leaving it open for sequel.
Definitely leaving it open for sequel because, okay.
But at least they did tie this one into Godzilla Raids Again.
How? Oh, that's right, because they pulled him out of the iceberg.
Pulled him out of the iceberg that he was in Godzilla Raids Again, which is why he hasn't attacked in all this time.
In the American version, they were surprised to see Godzilla there, and they were like, he's been frozen for thousands of years. So please tell me in the Japanese version they said...
No, they talk about the fact, this is the because they don't realize what they've hit. And when he comes out, they're like, oh, crap, this is the one we froze him in the 1950s.
Okay, good.
So, yeah.
Good. That's one thing that the Japanese version definitely got superior.
Yeah, so they directly connected it to Godzilla Raids Again.
Good. I like that. That's great. That
makes
me
I
feel
liked
good.
it.
That makes me feel good. That makes me feel better about the whole thing because in the American version, after having seen Godzilla Raids Again, this time they're like, he's been frozen for thousands of years in that ice. He must have come up from some. Do we got a third Godzilla now?
No.
How many Godzillas we gonna do? We just
No. This is the same one.
Okay.
That's how it was intended.
That's how it was intended. Well. Doggone, the American version screwed that up, among other things that they probably screwed up.
Yeah, because we'll talk about it in a minute.
Well, one thing that I love. So, despite the fact that King Kong gets top billing, Godzilla is the one that we see first.
Yes, it is.
And he shows up, and what has he got? Glowing spikes. Finally!
Yeah, the spikes start glowing, and he revs up.
Yes.
Yep.
Like, we are seeing all of the tropes that we see in the later movies show up in this movie.
Yeah, the funny thing, and this was the first one in color.
I guess it was.
It's
I hadn't thought about
color.
that. Yeah.
But I think it's funny that the first one they see is Godzilla, but the first one they talk about is King Kong.
There was, because we're setting it up. They're kind of redoing the King Kong story.
Little bit.
Because we've got the TV producer.
You got the TV producer his pharmaceutical company is sponsoring a show which is not doing very well, and so they decide.
He's like, get me a monster.
Yeah, they decide they want to do some publicity stunt, which was big in the 1960s.
Yeah,
as we discussed, and so he hears about this giant monster or something. He doesn't know exactly what it is on this island. So he's like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go get this monster. We're going to bring it to Japan and we'll do this big stunt and to advertise the show. What a great idea. I'm like, how is this a great idea? Obviously.
But again, it's the same setup as in the original King Kong movie with just different people.
But with the original King Kong movie, they hadn't already been, trounced by giant monsters before. And in this one, Japan had been trounced by a giant monster before.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Now,
but it does make sense because later in the movie, when he tries to bring the giant monkey onto Japan,
the government is like, no.
Yeah, the Japanese Defense Force is like, that ain't coming on our island. No, go away.
Yes, I love that part. I thought that
was like, yay, someone with a brain.
That was so good. Now, we do at this point get the beginning of the B story, and I want to talk
Yeah.
about the B story a little bit here. There was no B story.
No, there wasn't.
It was so minimal. Okay, there was a B story, but at the end of the movie, I had to go back and rewatch the movie and skip ahead because there was Pretty Girl.
Yeah, Pretty Girl's the sister of Mr. Handsome.
Right,
Pretty Girl's name is, I have it right down. Fumiko, who is Mr. Handsome, who is Osamu Sakurai.
And now and then she is the boyfriend the girlfriend. Yeah, her boyfriend is Fujita. Is that right? I think so. And the thing is, we'll just call him Pretty Boy to get it out of the way.
Because see, in the Japanese version, Mr. Handsome, the main guy,
Yeah.
Fumiko is his sister.
Huh. Well, is that a family name? Did I put the family name first?
No, it's Fumiko Sakurai.
Okay.
So, and it
Okay,
should
so
be,
we're just-
it should
we're
be
just gonna say-
Sakurai. If you're in Japanese, it's Sakurai Fumiko and Sakura Osamu.
So we've got
Sakurai.
Pretty Girl, Pretty Boy,
Yeah.
and Brother.
Yeah.
And that is our B story.
Okay.
Okay. And they do practically nothing this entire. We get the scene with the steak that establishes Pretty Girl, Pretty Boy,
Brother.
and I remember the steak scene.
Well,
he
so
shows off his
brother
his-
and brother and Mr. Handsome. They are sent by producer to go get Kong.
Yes,
So
and they are certainly there for that.
Yeah. So then they show up, and then of course Kong just happens to grab sister/girlfriend
Yes,
and climb the Diet building. And I had to look up how to say that. It's based on the French word, and it's not die like it would be in Japanese. It's
Right.
Diet.
Diet. Interesting. Well, so again, that happens
Like,
at the end
I
of the
looked
movie,
it up.
but they're trying to recreate the original King
Yeah,
Kong, and
idea.
they're like, let's have him climb the shortest building in the area. Like, let's have him stand on top of a hill. It didn't have the same impact.
It really didn't. At the time, the Diet building was considered very tall. They didn't have Tokyo Tower yet. They didn't have any of that. So, and it was the Capitol building in D.C. for us. So it's an important building. So you can't just like lob rockets at it.
Right. I guess I can see that, but it just didn't have the impact of
It's not
him
the
hanging
same.
off
It's
the
Empire State Building. Yeah,
No,
it's
you
true.
know. I did, however, we'll talk about the effects later, but the effect of him holding a little doll that they were like having the arm articulate badly.
Yeah, it was
I
like a bad Barbie doll.
I love the effort. I love the effort.
A for effort.
And just like I said in the original King Kong, like when I'm watching a modern movie and I'm seeing all these effects,
You're looking for the seams.
I'm looking for the seams, and the seams were very evident
Oh, yeah.
in this movie, which enabled me
It
to
was
just
very
go,
Power Rangers.
yes, and I was able to go, okay, I see how they're doing that now.
We're gonna
Let me
move
just
on.
enjoy the
Yeah.
movie now. And so, in that way, I didn't hate those effects, but
Mm-hmm.
yes, the seams in the little girl, and when they switch between the puppets versions of them versus the suited version of them versus the toys. I loved it when we are seeing Godzilla walking up the mountain, and it's very clearly they've got like a little toy on a stick, and they're going, "Rawr, rawr, rawr."
I'm an action figure.
Yeah, they had puppeteered the arms and stuff like that.
It was crazy.
It was beautiful,
it
but
was,
a mess.
It was stopgap, but you know what? It's okay.
So they're on the island, and we have a mini boss.
Yeah, the octopus
The
shows
giant
up.
octopus shows up.
And he shows up because he wants because it's the Faroe Island, and so
Right.
they want the Faroe juice.
Yes, the red berry juice that gets you. In the American version, the guy is the announcer at the very beginning says they found this island with these berries that has a pleasant narcotic effect on you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if they. And then they went to the Japanese version, and they're like, yes, we know where these berries are, but they're uninterested in trading because they need them for their god.
Yeah, it's they need it for whatever religious reason, which basically is to keep King Kong happy.
To keep King Kong happy. I mean, fair
Because
reason.
it's supposed to be it's in the Japanese version. Yeah, I guess you could call it slightly narcotic. It's supposed to be very soothing.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's their marijuana. I don't know, but
Hey,
and it
you
knocks
know.
him to sleep. It puts him to sleep.
It puts him to sleep, in conjunction.
But apparently the octopus wanted to get high too, so he's going after the berries, and Kong is having none of it.
I loved the effects of, first of all, the octopus itself was pretty good, but then we got to see some very obvious but stop motion
Yeah.
tentacles overlapping in front of the live action
Which was
one.
cool. It was some nice cinematography.
It was obvious, but it was nice.
Yeah.
And I kind of dug it.
It was breaking for when it was.
For sure.
Yeah.
And they did. I will not say they did a good job, but I appreciate the effort. I appreciate
I mean, the stop motion in King Kong, the original King Kong in 1933, was far better. Because they mixed the hands coming in and the actual girl and
I don't know
Fay
if I
Wray.
will say that it was better. It probably was better, but not having it on top of live action footage the way that they did in this movie made it less jarring in the original King Kong.
I can accept that.
But at the same time, I'd also think that it was better because I think that those tentacles looked to me like they were moving at 12 frames per second or something like that, whereas the octopus was moving, 24 frames per second. And
Sorry,
then,
my weird sound effects.
fair enough. No, you're selling it. And then sure enough, King Kong shows up and he's like, "Nope, my berries." And then immediately he's like, "Well, the octopus has been destroyed. I'm gonna have some berry juice."
Yeah.
Well done, dude.
And everyone else is gonna have kimchi. Yeah.
I read something about the behind the
Korean,
scenes.
yes.
The giant octopus was actually 4 octopuses. 3 of which were released out to the wild, one of which became the director's dinner.
I know. He actually ate it.
He actually ate it afterwards, and you know what?
Maybe that's the one that was the hardest to work with.
That's right. A lesson to the rest of you.
So yeah.
No, and then
he passes out from the jungle juice.
Not just the jungle juice. We got the native. Oh, can we talk about the Japanese Africans? I
shouldn't laugh.
No, but it's interesting to me that they in the original King Kong they got actual Africans to play the part, and there were some parts where it was very obviously white people in makeup with a wig on. But there was no Africans
there was
in
no
sight
attempt.
in this one.
There was no attempt.
No,
they were all very, very Asian.
Very, very Asian, wearing afro wigs.
Bad
Afro wigs. I don't know if there's anything else to say about it other than, yep, that was a thing.
That was the thing.
That happened.
Yeah, do not expect anything to be PC in this movie.
No. But... So the natives are doing a song and a dance, and it's putting King Kong to sleep. And I especially love how we keep focusing on the girl with the largest coconuts.
That's a good way of putting it.
She serves no purpose in this story. And the whole time
Fan service.
Yeah, and the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, why are first of all, why are they singing and dancing?
Do you want him to go to sleep?
Yeah, but
This is not a lullaby.
Yeah, that was not a lullaby that they were singing. It made no sense to me. And then, again, we're focusing on these people who are not going to be a part of it. And darn it, they made it pay off later.
I know,
They made it work.
Right? We were like, what the? Oh.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, when they're like, we got to put King Kong to sleep so that we can get him off this state building, they play the song and they play the drums. And I'm like, doggone it, they validated it.
And then they released the berry juice in gaseous form.
Gaseous berry juice. I don't know why they made it gaseous. They should have just rolled up with a couple of barrels and be like, hey, buddy, girl for the berry juice. Come on, man. Let's make a trade here.
Well, and I'm like, gee, I hope no one's inside the building or they're all high on berry gas, too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, good day for the government building, I guess.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's true. Okay.
Well, then it goes back to the sub, who's getting trapped in the ice. So they're trying to break the ice to get out, and they unfortunately happen to be trapped in the same ice that Godzilla was trapped in.
Right. And Godzilla comes out. He goes on a rampage. Glowing spikes. Yay.
Yeah. I was like, it glows now!
It was a good rampage.
It was a good rampage. That was up in Hokkaido, which is the northernmost part of Japan.
Yeah, let's talk about
This was
how
all over.
far-reaching
Look, I have a
was
map!
on this visual medium. I may
I
have
know.
to put
This is for
on
us.
YouTube. Yeah. But no, this ranges all over Hokkaido's. Where's Hokkaido?
Hokkaido's
Way up
the big island up at the north.
Okay, so it could be anywhere on that island. But so
Yeah.
where's Tokyo? Tokyo's
Tokyo's
smack in the
down
middle.
here.
And then where else did they go?
They went to Mount Fuji and Atami, which is down here.
Yeah. Like this movie.
It's on the same main island as Tokyo. It's
Yeah.
just further south on a different bay.
Right. And the army at this point, they're trying to stop
Well,
Godzilla's
the
rampage.
Japanese Defense Force.
Japanese Defense Force is trying to stop Godzilla's rampage, and so what do? They put up electrified wires to try to stop him.
Yeah, they tried poison gas first, and that was
That didn't do anything,
that
no.
did not affect the Lizard of Doom. So,
And
which
the
is funny
electrified
because they
wires
tried it before in previous movies and it didn't work. So yeah.
Yeah, they never learned. But the electrified wires apparently did work, and then we get this strange thing where, and we're rewinding back here, but King Kong comes into the electrified wires,
And it juices him up.
and it juices him
And
up.
that is from the stolen plot line.
Okay, so let's talk about the stolen plot line a little bit. This movie did not start out as King Kong versus Godzilla.
No, it was King Kong versus Frankenstein's monster,
No.
written by an American stop motion animator by the last name of O'Brien.
And it should be mentioned that there was a previous Japanese movie, a Japanese kaiju movie,
Willis
which
O'Brien.
we are not going to review on this particular, because it's not in our collection, and really I don't want to watch it, but where it was Frankenstein conquers the world or something like that, and Frankenstein's
That's
monster
like
becomes a
it's
kaiju.
not even a B movie, it's like a D movie.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just. I'm gonna give you guys the synopsis of this movie so you can recognize why you shouldn't watch it. Here's the story: the heart of Frankenstein's monster is dug out of the castle that fell onto Frankenstein at the end of the Boris Karloff Frankenstein. I don't know what happened in the books, but never mind. They dig out the heart, and the heart starts growing, and it grows into a boy, that grows into a man, that grows into a giant man, that goes on a rampage. We are not reviewing this movie. We are not. But apparently it established Frankenstein's monster as a kaiju, and then an American apparently saw that movie and was
Willis
like,
O'Brien,
I want more of that.
Around 1960. He gave the outline to the producer John Beck. I'm reading this, so I'm not that intelligent. Gave the outline to the producer
you
John
are.
Beck for development, and then Beck went behind O'Brien's back and gave the outline to Toho Company in Japan, which was trying to do some really big movies for their 30th anniversary.
Right.
And they snapped it up, but didn't want to do Frankenstein's monster because it wasn't really well known in Japan. So they turned it into
Yeah, they just did a search and replace
Yeah.
Frankenstein for King Kong.
for Godzilla.
For Godzilla, that's right. No.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
they
but,
swapped out Frankenstein's monster for King Kong. Because it was
So-
supposed to be Frankenstein's monster versus Godzilla,
Yeah,
and now it's
because
King
Willis
Kong versus
O'Brien
Godzilla.
actually was one of the stop motion animators in King Kong
Yeah.
when he was really young.
And he wanted this to be a stop motion movie, but then
Yeah, they
Toho
replaced
got
the
it.
giant Frankenstein monster with Godzilla, but they included the King Kong still getting.
Yeah,
it
I
was
think
weird.
that's got to be a typo because
It could be.
it's very obvious that they just took the script and did search and replace
Yeah.
Frankenstein King Kong, because here we go. King Kong walks into the wires and it juices him up.
Yeah, like it would
juices
have
up
if it had been Frankenstein's monster. Yeah.
Why is King Kong getting it? Because
Yeah,
they
'cause-
didn't bother to check the script.
Yeah,
after
I mean,
they,
how many times in the original King Kong did he go around, power and everything else, and never did anything for him then?
No, and it makes sense when you realize it, and it comes into play in the ending, which
Oh,
we've
yeah.
already gone over. The lightning that struck
Yeah,
him,
random lightning bolt
and-
for out of the blue.
random lightning bolt juiced him up, but yeah, it's one of those things that you have to kind of squint and turn sideways at and go like, I'm not gonna think too hard about
Yeah.
it, but it didn't. That's one of the things
It
about this
didn't
movie
jive.
that didn't work, but it was necessary
Yeah,
for the way
it was
that
like
they wrote
it
it.
was the we don't know what else to do, so we'll just leave it
Yeah,
like
how,
they had
how
it with the
else are we
Frankenstein
going
monster.
to have our hero
Mm-hmm.
ostensibly be down and out, and then have the third act reversal that
Right.
he can come back? Well, we'll just keep the exact same thing that we were going to do for the monster.
In fact, O'Brien was so upset about Beck going behind his back that he attempted to sue.
I think he should have won,
But
the world is not a fair place.
He didn't have enough money for a
Yeah.
lawyer.
No, nothing's
and then,
changed.
one of the co-directors of the original movie King Kong, last name Cooper, he filed a lawsuit to keep it out of the U.S. Because it violated copyright.
Yeah.
But it failed. The lawsuit failed on a technicality because copyright laws are different in Japan.
I got it. Well, I mean, on the one hand, being so far removed from this whole situation, I'm glad that we have all of this.
Yes.
But at the same time, that's a raw deal for those dudes who.
They got nothing out of it. It was their character, but they got nothing from their character being used in another movie.
Now, at this point, we get a little bit of the B story again, where King Kong, Godzilla's rampaging, and which one? Brother goes to save
Sakura,
sister.
Yeah. Because King Kong just happens to pick sister as the beautiful bombshell.
Well, no, this is Godzilla on the train.
Godzilla
we're not
on
even
the train.
to that
We're not
yet.
even at that point yet. Yes, right. Godzilla on the train.
He goes driving opposite of everybody's running the opposite direction, and then randomly finds her as she's collapsed in the river and rescues her and takes her back, and that's where she gets captured.
Yes, you're
by
right.
King Kong.
You know what?
And again,
if I had to choose between Godzilla on a train and snakes on a train, I would totally choose Godzilla. Way more fun. I might not survive it, but I was going
to say, on the one hand, snakes are a slow death. Godzilla is a quick one, so I guess that's your choice.
And you get a great view before you go.
That's true. They did have a really, really cool scene, though, because, she gets on another train, and King Kong picks up that train, and they had a scene of the train lifting up past King Kong's body, and then him looking into the train, and I was like, that was pretty cool.
That was pretty
neat.
cool. I mean, it might have been early green screen projection, where not green screen, but where you have the
rear
projection. I don't know, but it still looked really.
They did a good job with it.
It was good. Well
and then
married.
He shakes her out and carries her to the building. Now, they subdue him with the music. They pay off that doggone tribal dance at the beginning, so I can't complain about it now. And then
they just knew. They knew someday in the future Joe Larson was going to complain about it, so they needed to turn it back in. Had to tie it back into the plot.
Well, I mean, that's good story writing.
It is. It's good.
And
even
like
if you're going to steal the story, you might as well do it well.
He's got a big brain, and he's
a marble.
and he's brawn. That's a setup that they didn't pay off, but it turns out it was tacked on, so I can't complain about that too much, other than the fact that they shouldn't have tacked that on. But then they do the thing where they lift King Kong. Okay, I like with balloons, and that gets a
callback. Wrote that down. Kong with balloons is ridiculous.
It is, but they do it in a future King Kong versus Godzilla movie too, and I didn't realize when I saw that one that it was a callback to this one. And I kind of love that, but my problem with it is they're talking about, hey, that wire that you had is holding him up that's stronger than steel wire. That's cheese slicer wire.
Yeah. How does it not slice right through his arm?
How did they not end up with like slices of King Kong at the end there, okay? Because obviously what he's being carried with is much, much thicker.
Now I have imagery.
Sorry about that. But he was not being carried by the same wire that brother was hanging himself out the window at the beginning, because it would have not done good.
No way.
I say that, but this is King Kong. He's pretty impermeable. So he might have been fine.
I don't know. He got burned.
He did get burned.
He got burned by Godzilla's breath weapon.
That's right. In their first encounter,
he backs off from Godzilla. Because Godzilla burned him with his quote-unquote heat ray, which was new. I'm like, is it derived from his atomic breath, or is it just heat?
It's not atomic breath yet, but it
gets
will
atomic
get there.
Later.
Yeah.
But I'm like, he has a heat ray now? Okay.
And then
apparently it burns him.
They take King Kong and unceremoniously drop him
on Mount Fuji.
On Mount Fuji.
Because, of course, the giant monsters have to go to the mountain.
Yeah, why not? They always go for the places on the postcards. They're like, man, when I'm in Japan, I got to see Mount Fuji close up, you know? I mean, let's face it, you do the same thing. So
yeah, but I'm a tourist, not a giant monster out to destroy the world.
He can be both.
I'll go see it, and then I'll stomp on it.
And we get this fight where King Kong is trying to outsmart Godzilla and
failing miserably. And they end up going down the side of Mount Fuji into the smaller town of Atami.
Okay. I'll trust your pronunciation on that.
Yeah, don't. But anyway, which is also a coastal city, apparently near Mount Fuji. and it has a beautiful historic castle in it.
Yes.
And
so
they
what do they
proceed
do?
to destroy it.
It amuses me that at this point Godzilla is on the ropes. Mm-hmm. He's not wanting to fight, so he hides behind. I'm guessing this is what he does. He hides behind it. Mind you, the fight so far has been cool. There's been like
it was very
picking
cool.
up the Godzilla monster and slamming him. And like the dudes in the suits are getting wrecked.
I mean, I remember. Actually, one of my notes as I was watching it was Godzilla can dropkick King Kong because he does.
Okay, that was another stop motion animation motion or part. And it stood out so bad.
I know.
It stood out so bad.
And I mean, because he tail whaps him a couple times, which
Yes.
I was okay with. That made sense.
Well, and then there was the rock that they batted back and forth.
Yeah.
That was,
Well, in the first fight, Godzilla's chucking rocks at, or not, King Kong is
Kong's
chucking
chucking
rocks,
rocks at
and it's
Godzilla.
not even phasing Godzilla.
No.
Which is where Kong is like, I need to go back home and rethink my life. Yeah.
Yes. But then, and I love that their solution to, well, we've got one giant monster that's a problem, let's drop another giant monster on him. And I love that when they drop King Kong on him, once again, it's like they roll the toys down the hill. It was toys, and it was so good. It was so cute.
I also wrote, why didn't they warn the locals near Mount Fuji that they were setting a stage for a
Should
battle?
have evacuated. Well, wouldn't they have already evacuated with Godzilla there?
You would
One
think,
hopes, yeah.
but they didn't.
Oh, well.
Yeah, it's like, okay, locals, the Mount Fuji, there's a giant monster up there. Oh, look, now we're going to drop another one. You might want to not be in the way. You think?
But King Kong gets powered up. He puts Godzilla on the rope, and Godzilla hides behind this castle. And so I would have
cried.
I would
That
have liked
castle.
to have seen a moment of King Kong trying to approach him and him keeping the castle between them, and then him
Keep away.
Yeah, and then him going, screw it, I'm just going through the castle.
Yeah.
But instead, it looks like they both just intentionally start slap killing the castle because
Oh, they can.
they knew that it would upset you in the future.
Yes,
you
it
know?
upsets future Sarah because she loves history. And I was like, no, not the castle.
It was not even like the castle was a part of the fight. It's just
No,
they
it's just-
simultaneously
Just
said,
like, let's
"Hey,
stomp this.
Let's destroy this thing together. Why not? Bonus points.
Giants in the sandbox.
Why?
It's just like two big kids coming along to a little kid's sandcastle and decide to destroy it for fun, you know?
You know what? Maybe this is the moment that they came together and they found something that they love to do together.
Destroy things.
Destroy historic monuments. This is the common ground that they could meet on. You know?
I don't know, but yeah, it was like, let's just pull at the heartstrings of the Japanese people by destroying a beloved castle.
Right. And then grapple, water, earthquake,
Yeah.
Godzilla gone.
Yeah.
What was that ending?
Yeah,
You know?
it was terrible. So yeah, they grapple, they tussle, and they fall off a cliff. Gee, that was useful. And there's some broiling water, and then a thump, rumble,
Yeah.
earthquake, and then you just see King Kong come up to the top.
What do you think King Kong did to Godzilla down there?
I don't know. That's the problem. Because obviously Godzilla can breathe underwater.
Sure.
Because that's where he lives.
Well, King Kong must have slammed him into the rock face so hard that he embedded him.
into the side. Knocked him unconscious.
In my
or
head canon,
something.
when they're down there, he starts signing to him,
This
being
is
like,
dumb.
"Listen, this is going to take forever. You cool it. I'm going to go back home.
I'm going home to my berry juice.
Yeah,
and
and we'll come by. I'll share you some berry juice sometime.
Yeah,
or
we'll
something.
play cards,
And,
yeah.
and they're just like, yeah, I'm tired too.
this
Let's
is
just
dumb.
stop.
The humans aren't watching anymore. We don't have anyone to impress.
That's right. That's got to be what happened there.
At the very end, Kong comes up to the top and he swims back to his island. He's like, I'm
Yeah.
done with you people. You're stupid. I'm going to go back to being worshipped. And
Okay,
Godzilla
and-
just vanishes, but the JDF, the Japanese Defense Force, surmises they're like, no, this isn't the last we've seen of Godzilla.
Right.
This is just a setback for him.
Right.
I'm sure he's going to come back someday.
Yeah, and the American version ends with the American reporter going, "Our satellites are tracking King Kong, and we wish him well on his journey." And I was like, well, okay, that's thanks an ending, I guess.
Yeah.
I enjoyed many, many things about this movie.
But not the end.
The ending fell a little flat.
It definitely felt like they were setting it up for us. It was like, we're leaving this open. How literary
Yes.
of us to
Yes.
leave ourselves open for a sequel.
That, and they have said over and over again, the makers of this movie said King Kong won. But they have had to reiterate that at
Over
least
and
3
over and
times
over.
over and over again because people are like,
they're like, well, what happened?
yeah, what happened? King Kong won.
How?
King Kong won. Okay, fine. So King Kong definitively won the fight, and it definitely left it open for a sequel.
Yeah, underwater, they just shook hands, decided there was no humans to impress. We're
Yeah,
done. It's nap time anyway. Let's go.
Exactly. Have my people call your people. So
We'll
was
get together in an American film in about 50 years.
Yes. Because King Kong doesn't come back in another Japanese production. I imagine that the rights and the fights that happened
They
probably
were just like,
prevented
okay,
that
we're
from
just
happening.
going to stay out of
But
this now.
King Kong does get more monsters to fight as we're going on. So they were like, at this point, King Kong has been bolstered. And at this point, or not King Kong, Godzilla has been bolstered.
Yeah, actually, it was at the time it came out, it was the second highest grossing film in Japan. It grossed 352 million yen.
How did it do in the American market, I wonder?
I have
don't know.
absolutely no idea. It didn't say. But it was released theatrically in the United States by Universal. It says so right there in 1963.
In 1960, I did know that. And
yeah, it says a heavily re-edited, quote-unquote, Americanized version.
Which is the version that I watch. And aside from the fact that they botched the origin of Godzilla in this one, and I don't know why they did.
And the brain comparisons.
And the brain comparisons, which again was a missed opportunity. It wasn't a bad version. I think it still followed the same. We were able to have a conversation about this movie, despite the fact.
Different that, we could still follow it.
And so overall, let's talk about rankings. So I forgot my computer this time. You and I are just going to have to remember the rankings. King
Kong was first.
And our rankings are still lockstep.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they're going to remain so. King Kong
was number 1.
Strong start, and it's been difficult to knock that one down. We both have put Godzilla at the original
the first
Godzilla
is number 2.
At number 2. Did we both put Godzilla Raids Again at number 3, and then
3 and 5?
3 and depending on which half of the movie that you're watching, but we're just going to call it 3. And then number 4 was Rodan.
Rodan was the one that was 2 parts, wasn't it? 2 different movies.
Rodan was the one.
Yeah,
Rodan was the one that was 2 different movies. Yeah. So maybe
because the end of Rodan we put as 3.
That's right.
And then
I put Rodan as number 3.
Yeah.
Did you put Rodan as number 3? I think you did. I've got the official
Godzilla
list.
Raids
So
Again.
where does King Kong versus Godzilla fall in the list for you?
Well, storytelling wise, or just overall?
Well, I mean, just put it on the ranking. If you want to get granular with it, we can make 2 ranks for you.
No.
You know,
Special effects versus
special
overall.
effects, story, B story. You know, this one failed on the B story.
Yeah.
The
There wasn't a
human
lot to
characters
it.
had so little.
They were just
presence
like
in
giant monsters,
which I appreciate.
That's why you liked it so much.
That's why that is definitely why I liked it. But I will admit it lacked depth because of that, and it will not be higher than the original King Kong.
Oh, heavens no!
Because the original King Kong had that human element that they established extremely well.
Oh yeah,
and great monster moments.
Oh yeah, no, it was
and the monster has
wonderful
personality. This movie, I would say, had
the monsters had better personality.
Better personality, pretty good monster moments, just real weak B story.
Yeah, I liked it better than Rodan.
Okay, so it's not at the bottom of the list.
It's not at the bottom of the list. And the problem with Rodan is the B story was weak. And it was like 2 separate movies.
It was 2 separate movies. I will say that Rodan probably had a stronger B story than this movie did, but it didn't save it. It wasn't enough to save it.
No, it wasn't enough to save it.
And the monster effects in this one, Rodan did have one cool moment.
It did, when they were going down the street and the cars were going flying.
Yeah.
That was cool.
And that is important to a good kaiju movie, is having those moments. Which is why...
King Kong looking inside the train car was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I will tell you, I am putting this movie at number 2.
What?
I am putting this before the original Godzilla movie, but obviously it's less than... I enjoyed it more than the original Godzilla movie. Now, I will say... I don't know if it's going to stay at number 2, if something else is going to take its place. But right now, it is, to me, a solid contender for a really good, really fun movie.
See, I was going to put it below Godzilla, put it at number 3.
Okay, so there's where our list finally diverges.
Just because I'm more of a story person.
Absolutely.
And so I thought the Godzilla story was much stronger.
Godzilla had a very strong story. It had very good beat. It had very...
The human element and the monster element were both really good.
The human and the fact that the human element was so good in that original, the love triangle and the conflict of using this weapon.
Do I or don't I? Yeah, like the whole conflict of does Truman use the atom bomb? Yeah.
It was great story, great movie. It just made me
slow.
Feel so bad. It made me sad more than
That's because you're an American.
I have come to have to accept that. I did not realize that this exercise of watching kaiju movies was going to reveal to me something about myself, but I have learned I am a dumb American, and I just have to be okay with that. Because I'm not going to be like, well, I have to put on airs and I have to pretend that this movie, that I didn't enjoy this movie as much as I enjoyed this movie, because obviously this is an No,
it's totally subjective.
It is 100% subjective.
And see, my tastes in movies, I need to have a story.
Yeah.
Or I don't care about the coolness factor.
You know what? I can already tell. I don't know if it will hit this list. In fact, I don't think it will, because it's not in our collection, but Godzilla 0. Did you get a chance to see that one?
No, I've seen Shin Godzilla, but not Godzilla.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I have seen Godzilla 0. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
Godzilla 0, just really quickly, if I were to put this on the ranking, would be number 2 right now. And the reason is, okay, one, it's a return to...
original Godzilla.
Well, and kaiju as a metaphor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, most definitely.
The Godzilla existed in that movie to be a literal representation of his PTSD, okay, and his survivor's guilt, and the damage that causes to everybody around him. And yet, despite the fact that it was kaiju as a metaphor, which I have in the past said I didn't like, it was done so well.
Brilliantly written.
The story elements were good, and it left me feeling good. Okay?
It left you with a feeling of hope.
It left me with a feeling of hope and happiness, and I'm not going to spoil this movie for anybody who hasn't watched it, but I was satisfied with the way that it ended. Whereas in the original Godzilla, I was left going...
You feel guilty.
Yeah, I feel guilty. I felt like, couldn't there have been another way? This poor dude got such a bad hand out of the whole situation that he felt that blowing himself up with the monster was a better choice than living his life. That's not a good feeling. Whereas in Godzilla 0... again, not going to say what happens, but I left going, okay.
Yeah.
You know, it had its moments, it had its things that I was like, maybe not, but for the most part, I can already tell you that movie would be number 2 on my ranking right now. So King Kong versus Godzilla I can already tell you is not going to be in number 2 forever, but I don't know if there's anything between this and that's going to knock it off.
I don't know. Next is Mothra versus Godzilla.
Next is Godzilla versus Mothra, and I have good memories of this one, but again, it's one that I have never watched from beginning to end. I have memories of creepy girls singing. I have memories of a really weird, spitting webs all over. Yeah. I have like these strange fractured memories.
But Mothra has such a cool call. It's beautiful.
Yes,
sound.
I remember that sound, but I have not seen this movie from beginning to end, so I am excited to put it on the list and see how it works.
Because Mothra becomes one of the most popular Godzilla quote-unquote sidekicks.
And it's I wonder why. I can't wait to watch this movie to find out why. Because this will be my first chance, so wish me luck.
Heck yeah, they even brought Mothra in the new movies.
Yes, and she is still a big part of those new movies.
Yeah.
All right, was there anything else left on your notes that we wanted to talk about?
Let's see. I have lots of notes, and they're all written in weird Nope. I think we pretty much covered it. Yeah, I just love the gaseous form of the jungle juice to knock out Kong, along with the funny dance. And the fact that no one was surprised, just the random crowds. None of them looked like, what the heck are they doing? Just, okay, they're all doing this weird dance.
Well, yeah.
So the extras weren't allowed to emote, to be like, I'm this random citizen in Tokyo, and they're doing this. I can't help but
wonder if that wasn't a continued part of the message of this movie, that the public is just mindless and dumb.
Yeah, because they've been watching all these crazy stunts on TV.
But then again, do I want to give the director of this movie that much credit? You know what I am. I'm going to give him that much credit. I'm going to say that was an intentional choice. Yeah,
he was trying to show that they were creating a nation of 100 million idiots,
which he has actually stated. So I think it was.
He didn't, but the cultural satirist at the time did.
Okay, and you noticed that in the movie, so I'm going to say it counts. I'm going to say that was the intent.
It was totally intended.
Yeah.
So accidentally cool.
He's the Stanley Kubrick of his day.
Oh dear.
Maybe not.
Kubrick was a little Kubricky.
Yeah. But again, the background extras couldn't blink, so
Ouch.
Right. Well, let's wrap it up.
All right, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Joe.
And we invite you to do a little self-examination of your own at your local library.
Thanks for listening.